My story starts out pretty much like anybody else's. I grew up in your average home, parents that loved me, and as a kid we'd go to church and everything was good, and I had a good life. And as I got older, we kind of stopped going to church and didn't really keep up with my Bible or anything, and just I got to a point where I just kind of dealt with my life on my own. It's not that God wasn't a part of it, but He wasn't my life. I wasn't living for Him. I was living for myself. And my grandfather got ill, and we were really close, and he passed away, and that was the first time I'd ever really experienced loss. It was something really tragic in my life, and it just really tore me up and shook me. And what little faith I had in God, I kind of lost it then. I started drinking, and didn't really, made me feel better in the moment. It didn't really solve the problem, but I got to where even that wasn't enough, and I'd had this friend that had been talking to me about, hey, you want to feel better, why don't you come smoke some pot with me, get high, it'll make you feel better. And it really wasn't my thing. I was always, nah, no thank you. But then I was just having a bad day, and he got me at the right time, and I was like, let's do this. We went, and I remember it. We smoked, and I got really high, and I enjoyed it immensely. It made me feel better in the moment, and it gave me a peace that I hadn't had since I was a kid. And so I fell into smoking. It was just kind of a social thing at first, and then within a few months I'd gotten to the point where I was buying it, and I kept it on me all the time. I would smoke when I woke up. I would smoke before anything, really. I got dependent on it, and back then I wouldn't have called it an addiction. It was something I enjoyed. Towards the end of college, I met Haley, and she had grown up in a Christian home, and she made it very clear to me once she knew that I was smoking that I needed to make a decision. And I loved her, so I stopped smoking pot, and it was of my own volition. I still didn't really have any kind of relationship with God at that point. And one day I was having a bad day, and I had a friend that was there to comfort me, and I ended up smoking, and next thing I know, I've fallen back into it. And I didn't tell Haley because I knew that if I told her, we would be over, and I didn't want that, so I didn't tell her. And we got married, and we went on a couple years, and of course she eventually caught me because I was doing it all the time. It was just a matter of time. By around 2013, quite a few years later, it finally had caused such a wedge between us that our marriage was at the end, and I was ready to walk away. Went to a few churches, and we took some counseling from a pastor, and things got a little bit better, and it was really the first time I had considered God in quite a long while. And it didn't stop me from my addiction. It slowed me down, but I would still smoke behind Haley's back, and I was just more careful about it because I didn't want to get caught again. So at the start of 2015, I remember one night Haley was pregnant. We had just found out not very long before that God really just spoke to me, and he told me that this baby, that the name for him was Asher, and the name Asher in Hebrew means blessing and happy. And he put it on my heart then. He told me, your life over these next few months is going to get worse. You're going to really fall into a pit, and I want you to trust me, and just let me carry you through this. Don't rely on yourself. Don't rely on your addiction. Rely on me. And when you come out on the other side, I have a blessing for you and a new season of your life that is going to be different. And so I did, and it was a very hard year. 2015 was probably the hardest year of my life, even harder than the year before when I lost my dad and all. I did stop for a while because I was so depressed that nothing made me feel better. Getting high didn't make me feel better. my family, my wife, my son, nothing. It was just my relationship with God that got me through that point. I realized that, I was being selfish and that my addiction didn't serve anything really. All it did was hold me back and keep me from having a relationship with God. You go through those struggles, those moments where you mess up and you give in to the temptation, or you feel like a failure. You see all these other people that are Christians that talk about how they've overcome their sins and they don't trouble them anymore, and you feel like a failure, and you feel, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get over this? But what you have to start to realize, and you do as you grow in your relationship with God, and you learn the Word and you understand God's will and purpose, that those chains were broken a long time ago on that cross, and that you are free from them, and it's the only thing holding you back is yourself. My life has changed, and I'm living for the Lord, and I couldn't be happier. This is my stone, but it's more than a stone. It's a reminder that the Lord's hand is mighty and that He is worthy of our trust and our praise.